Go ahead and keep the lights down. Ooh, got to create a mood. Got to have a mood for what we're going to do now. I don't know how long it had been since these two neighbors had spoken to each other. I think it had been like 2 years maybe. And it all started over the dumbest thing. It was this stray cat. It came along one day and hopped up on one of the neighbors' porch, and he fed it, and then it went over across the valley there to the other farmer's porch, and that farmer thought it was his, and so whenever they'd talk, they'd start arguing about it, and finally, they just stopped speaking altogether. So when the traveler came through looking for work, the farmer said, "Yeah, if you're a carpenter, I got some work for you. See that house over there across the valley? That's my neighbor. See this little ditch here? He calls that the creek. He dug that with his plow. Went up the hill and changed the way the water comes down the hill, and the creek, barely a trickle through there. Well, if he wants to try and separate us with that thing, I want to finish the job. I want you to build a fence all the way across. I don't even want to have to look at him. Can you do that?" And the carpenter said, "Yeah, I could do that. I'd need a whole lot more wood. I could get started with what you have in the shed here, but you'd have to go to town and get more." So on his way back, the farmer's driving down that old rutted dirt road in his pickup truck full of that lumber. And he looks out to where his new fence is supposed to be. And instead he sees that carpenter had built a bridge out of his wood onto his land. And here comes his neighbor walking across his bridge onto his land, walking right up to his pickup truck, hand out, big old dumb smile on his face. And he says, "Man, you're a brave man. I never thought you'd want to hear the sound of my voice again. I've been such a fool. Can you forgive me?" And the farmer found himself sitting there in his truck, looking at his neighbor and saying, "I knew it was your cat." And they turn and they look, and they see the carpenter walking away, and the farmer says, "Hey, I got some more work if you want it." And the carpenter said, "You'll be fine. I'm needed elsewhere." Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. It's hard work, right? Being a peacemaker. It's much easier to either just pretend like you don't notice your friends who are fighting. It's much easier just to mind your own business and let other people stay at war. Or if the problem's with you, it's a lot easier to just stay mad. It's a lot easier to try and just sweep it under the rug, pretend like it's not that big a deal. But it's one of the ways that people will be able to identify us as God followers. It's one of the ways, not the easiest way, not the convenient way, but it's one of the ways that people can look at our lives and go, they're different. Not everybody wants peace. Not everybody wants somebody nosing into their business. Not everybody thinks they need help. But to be a peacemaker means that you're not content just letting things be. You're not cool with letting people hate each other. You're not okay seeing conflict and bitterness and resentment and hate build up between people. And it's a lot easier just to pretend it's not happening, to pick a side maybe and even encourage the war. But it is one of the ways that people can see God in us. But it's one of the most difficult things that we're called to, isn't it? Think about that. Think about a situation where there's a lot of conflict. Maybe it's in your own house. Maybe you've got a brother or a sister that just, if only I could end them. Maybe it's between friends, and you've got a friend who's just cruel to you. They call themselves a friend, but they don't feel much like a friend, and it'd be a lot easier just to let the bitterness and the anger just build up. Maybe it's between two other people. Doesn't have anything to do with you at all, but you're seeing them destroy each other. Being a peacemaker is one of the most difficult things that Jesus calls us to. But if you remember the things that we've been talking about over the last 8 weeks now, this stuff that people sat down with Jesus and they're like, teach us, tell us how to follow God. Tell us how to have a relationship with him. We want to know. And Jesus goes, you really want to know? And they sit down, they park themselves down on the ground, and they want him just to be like, all right, be sure to keep your elbows off the table when you eat. Don't say the F word to your grandma. Make sure you don't steal the money out of the church offering plate. And basically just be a good person. Because everybody's cool with that, right? You're like, yep, not going to say the F word to grandma. Check, no problem. That's the easy stuff. That's the stuff we don't have any problem with. Instead, Jesus sits down and with him and he goes, you want to know what it is to follow God? It means letting him reshape your heart so that you are not okay with your sin. So that you're not okay with the ways that you're living against God and it burdens you. You want to know what it is to follow God? It means giving God the opportunity and the permission to come into your life and reshape you so that you will actually give mercy to somebody who doesn't deserve it. Where you hold back and you don't give them what they really deserve, which may be just a punch in the nose. You want to know what it is to follow God? It means that you just hunger and you thirst for the things of God and that you're actually willing to let this stuff, all your plans and all the things that you want to do, you're willing to let those go. It doesn't mean God's going to take them away from you necessarily, but you're willing to choose what God has for you and put that as a priority over what you have planned for you. And then Jesus has the audacity to say, and you'll find favor with God if you're a peacemaker. All that conflict that you hold on to, the bitterness, the frustration, the rage sometimes, the anger, you let that go. And you don't just become a peaceful person in yourself, but you make peace. And as far as it depends on you, you are at peace with people. And when you do that, people are going to see God. And then they're going to persecute us, insult us, say false things about us, and you're supposed to be glad about that. Wait, what? Jesus, okay, hold on. Jesus, I could take the whole don't punch somebody in the face even though that's what they deserve. Okay, I can probably restrain myself enough for that. Okay, Jesus, I'm fine with admitting, okay, maybe I'm not a perfect person and I need to recognize that I need something more than myself. Okay, I'm fine with that. All right, hunger and thirst for the things of God. Okay, I don't really know what that means, but I'm willing to go along with this. Wait, now you're saying that I will find favor with God when I am persecuted for doing the right thing. And persecution's a big word. It's a big deal. Persecuted doesn't just mean somebody quietly just kind of like, yeah, Caitlin's a little weird. That's not persecution. Persecution is active hostility. Persecution is when somebody's willing to get in your face and say, you are a fool, you are an idiot, you're ridiculous for what you stand for. for what you believe. It is a big deal. And here, Jesus makes their day by saying, you will be blessed if you're persecuted for righteousness, for doing the right thing. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. All right? That's the deal. You're going to get favored by God. You're going to get blessings from God when this happens to you. Who's ready to sign up for that? And the world would say, you're foolish, right? The world would go, that's dumb. Why would you? What? Don't do that. No. If you will just go along with the program, if you will just do what everybody else is doing, if you will just find acceptable what everybody else says is acceptable, if you will just kind of just blend in, quit being so awkward, then the world will be happy with you. You won't have all this stuff happen to you. And yet, what do we do when the Son of God says, you want to find favor with God? You want to know that God is the Lord of your life, is active in your life? Then this is going to happen to you. This is what you're going to face. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Righteousness and seeking God is offensive to the world. Do you see that? Do you ever see that in your school? In conversations that you have, or the ways that you hear? Maybe you've been undercover so far, and so like people aren't necessarily teasing you about it because you haven't gotten all freaky on them and actually told them what you believe in. But you hear them talking about Christians. You hear them talking about how stupid Christians are for believing this, or how terrible Christians are for believing that this is wrong, or how awful Christians treated your sister and how dumb church is. And you've heard it, right? We've all in this room at some point heard this. Righteousness and seeking God is offensive. It's not just something they don't really like. It's offensive to the world. They just don't get it. Living the way that Jesus is telling us to live. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness is offensive. It's not okay with them. To them, it actively speaks against everything they stand for. Because you're saying, it's not about you. It's not about what I want. It's about God actually living in my life. And I was reading this article, and I love the way they phrased it. They said, persecution can be a marker in our lives as to whether or not the way we are living is actually offending the unsaved. So what it's saying is, if you're sitting here and you're like, I've never had anybody tease me about my faith, and I stand here with you, so this is not me saying you're a bad Christian. This is me too. If you've never had somebody offended by what you believe and been confused at why you would believe that or act this way that's so different from them, why? What could some of the reasons be you've escaped persecution? Because I'm telling you, it's not because everybody agrees with what Jesus is calling us to live. So either that means I'm not living what Jesus is calling me to live, or I'm doing it secretly. I'm doing it covertly, and I'm just praying nobody finds out. Or they do find out, they realize that, hey, it's really not that big of a deal to me. I'm keeping it kind of just, look, I'm not one of those Jesus freaks, okay? If you've never had somebody bothered that you're a Christian, why? Persecution can be a marker in our lives as to whether or not the way we are living is actually offending the unsaved. Get this, not because we are attacking them, okay? I'm not saying, come on guys, go out there and offend people. Go out there and hurt people. Go out there and get in their face and be that stereotypical Christian that they hate and just offend people for the sake of offending them and being loud and obnoxious. Not because we're attacking them, but listen to this, but because the Spirit in us goes against the darkness in them. You loving somebody that the world thinks you should hate will bother them. The Spirit in you will go against the darkness in them. You deciding, no, you know what? I'm not going to cheat on that test, and you shouldn't either, is not you banging them over the head with Jesus, but the Spirit in you will offend the darkness in them. Are you living in a way, am I living in a way where that happens? Where we are so in line with just living for God. And we don't do it perfectly. And we're going to make mistakes. And we all have sin in our life. But where we are pursuing God in a way that we are awkward. We do make decisions that are different than the culture says to make them. And that the Spirit in us goes against the darkness in them. Now, we read this verse earlier. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil things against you because of me. And I asked, who wants to sign up for that? And some were like, yikes. Well, the reason we hesitate going, me, sign me up right now, is because we are still valuing the darkness. We are still going, what people think of me is worth more than me living and being awkward. Me succeeding and doing the things that culture says you have to do to be accepted is more important than me being awkward. When we, and this is a good measuring stick for us, when we hesitate and go, hey, people are going to mock you and tease you and give you a hard time for living for Jesus, and we don't go, me, sign me up right now. I want to be identified that way. I'm willing to take it. In reality, it's because we are still valuing the darkness. We're not willing to let it go. And that is something that Jesus is challenging the people and challenging us, going, do you really want to follow God? Because one of the things it's going to need to mean is that you care more about what God thinks and who God calls you to be than who your friends call you to be or society calls you to be. And you value those things more. So are you willing to view the cursing as a blessing? All right, now you've all got these name tags on, right? And I've loved reading the stuff that you guys you wrote it down. Nobody made you write it down. I mean, I made you write them down, but nobody chose them for you. You all said, this is me. Okay, somebody stand up and tell me what it says on your name tag. Personable. Okay, Max goes, I'm personable. Okay, who else? Come on. Obsessed with music. Tatiana is obsessed with music. Who else? Come on.
Obsessed with sci-fi.
Obsessed with sci-fi. What else? Come on. Stand up.
Singer and fighter.
I am a singer and a fighter. Not the MMA kind of fighter, but the determined kind of fighter. Okay? Who else?
A reader.
I am a reader. Erica is a reader. Okay? Now, these are all things that each of you, because you wrote it down, you were willing to go, hey, I am this, and I'm cool with you knowing it. I'm fine you knowing that I'm a reader, that I believe that I am in me, I am a quick thinker, that Jillian is a fencer, and that Kate is a seamstress. Okay? These are all things where it's like, this is me. I'm good. If someone were to mock you for that thing on your name tag, on your tag, okay? If someone were to go to Braden and be like, a programmer? A programmer? Are you kidding me? You're a programmer? Now, if someone, no, he identified that in himself and goes, this is what I am. I'm a programmer, and I'm bold enough to write it on my tag. Now, if someone were to go to you and look at that thing on your tag and go, oh, brother, that's dumb. You shouldn't be that. Okay, you shouldn't be a dancer. Are you even any good? You shouldn't be a singer. You shouldn't, what, you think you're creative? What? You know, you would have one of two responses to this. Okay, one, you may go, yeah, maybe I'm not that quick a thinker. I mean, I'm not clever or anything. I don't know. I probably shouldn't. And sometimes if you're around people you trust, you might be like, yeah, they think I'm this, and so I'll put it back on. And we get apologetic for it. We start excusing ourselves and going, well. So that could be one of your responses. The other response, okay, that you could have if somebody is like, oh, you think you're personable? You really think you're personable? The second response could be, yeah, I do. Stick it. Right? And you're going, look, I don't care whether you think I am this. I don't care whether you think that this is a valuable trait. I don't care whether you think this is a valuable talent. I don't care whether you think this is hip or cool. You're looking at it and you're going, this is me. This is something that I'm identifying in myself and that is good. And I'm proud of this. And people may try and make you feel insecure about it, but you're not going to have it. And when you think about those two responses, okay, and you think about the God that, if you call yourself a Christian, the God that you say you believe in, why in the world would you be embarrassed of anything he made you to be or ways he calls you to live? If we really are in a place where we have this faith in God, where we'll call ourselves a Christian, which hopefully would mean that we're going to stand for all that means, which means we're following Jesus, which means we're willing to be awkward when it comes to not doing just what society wants us to do, but doing what Jesus calls us to do. Why would we ever apologize for that? What does that say about our belief in who God is and who he made us to be? When we start apologizing, suddenly it means that, oh, God probably made a mistake. Oh, I probably shouldn't be as much this. Oh, yeah, maybe this is just me. I don't know. But when we live our lives, why would we start getting insecure about this when the world, who believes that they are the most significant thing in the universe, that their way is the best way, that they know all that they need to know, and their freedom is the most important thing, and yet we say we believe in a God who created us, who has a purpose for us, who loves us, who accepts us, who forgives us. Why in the world would we apologize for that? It's like someone who's holding a big, juicy prime rib sandwich. Just awesome. Starting to get insecure by someone who starts making fun of them, but they're holding a turd sandwich. And they're standing there holding this turd sandwich going, oh, you think that's going to taste good? You think that you're standing there holding grade A premium beef in all its gloriousness, and it's dripping the juices, and it's just awesome. And I know vegetarians are about to puke, but you're holding it, and they're standing there making fun of you holding their turd sandwich.
Arby's, we have the meats.
We would look at that and we'd go, that's silly. Don't listen to that person. What are they talking about? If they're willing to accept the turd sandwich, why in the world would we value so much what they have to say about what you've been given and who you're called to be? And yet, you guys, it happens all the time. And you never grow out of it. It's not something where it's like, once you're 25, you'll start to get secure in yourself. Tim, do you have any insecurities? Not one. See, once you get to Tim's age, you grow out of it. But we all do it. And we start to value the turd sandwich. We start to look at that and believe, that person must know what real taste is. That person must know what quality is. And we give them so much credit. We give the world so much credit. And we end up trying to be just like them, or trying to get them to accept us. We need to stop looking to the world and giving them so much credit and saying, you know the way, you know the best way, you know how I should look, you know how I should act, you know what I should believe is right and wrong. And we need to start looking at what Jesus says he has for us. Because Jesus wants to give you prime rib. The world's going to give you the other thing. Okay. So what we need to understand is this, that the world has it backward. The world has it backward. As much as we may be tempted to believe, and the world wants us to convince us that they've got it. No. You believe this. You should view things this way. You should consider this right, and this right, and this right, and this who cares, and this who cares. We need to recognize that the world has it backwards. They are the ones walking through life, hoping that they can somehow achieve something that will make them worth something. You were created by a God who says you are perfect. And yeah, you're a knucklehead sometimes. You make mistakes. God is so into you, he accepts you anyway. The world is the one wandering around, trying to get people to accept who they are and tell them that they're doing good. The world is trying to get everyone to validate them. The world is looking for love and acceptance and trying to find happiness and hope. And so you try and do it through success and money and popularity. We need to understand, we need to get this change in our thinking. The world is the one that has it backwards. Yeah, we're the ones that end up looking awkward, but we're not the ones, followers of Christ are not the ones wandering around in the dark, bumping into things, wondering why it hurts so bad, wondering why they can't see what's going on. We need to come to a place where we realize that they have it backwards. But get this, they don't have it backwards because they are just like, who cares? I'm trying to have it backward. They're not trying to have it backward. They can't see it. And there's something that the Apostle Paul wrote in his letter to the Christians in Corinth. And it says this, a person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolish. That's what I've been saying, right? That's not an original idea. Paul was telling youth groups, just like this, standing in front of them going, look, somebody who does not have the Spirit of God in them looks at the things of the Spirit of God and goes, that's silly. Here's why. And they can't understand them because they are discerned only through the Spirit. You can only understand things of God if you are filled with the Spirit of God. And so maybe you're here tonight and you wouldn't call yourself a Christian. You wouldn't. You're here because a friend invited you, or it's a fun place to be and we hang out and this is cool. But maybe you wouldn't identify yourself as a Christian, and you're going, I don't get all this. Right. And this is all going to seem really silly. Somebody standing up here and telling you to live counterculturally sounds like a bad idea. If you're not filled with the Spirit of God, then you're not going to be able to see it. Now, the cool thing is, God is offering himself to you right now. God is saying, look, I love you. I made you too. And just because you haven't believed in me doesn't mean I'm not real. And I love you, and I accept you, and I forgive you, and I died for you. But it is only when we accept that and we are filled with the Spirit of God that you can see things of the Spirit of God. The person with the Spirit makes judgment about all things, but such a person is not subject to merely human judgments. This is saying what I've been saying, that a person who is filled with the Spirit of God will be able to look at the ways of the world, the things that people are doing, and going, that's not okay. That's not going to bring you life. I know you think it brings you happiness right now, but it's not going to bring you life. A person filled with the Spirit of God is going to be able to see things and see what needs to happen. But a person filled with the Spirit of God should not open themselves up to be judged by people who do not have the Spirit of God. And you guys, when we go along with culture, when we just, oh, well, I guess that's who I have to be. Okay, I'll just conform so I'm not awkward, so I don't stick out. We're doing the wrong thing. We should not allow ourselves to be judged by people who are not filled with the Spirit of God. The person with the Spirit makes judgment about all things, but such a person is not subject to merely human judgment. For who has known the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. This is what we can have. God will give you discernment. God will give you an understanding of things. And people will mock you. People will tell you that it's dumb for you to believe these things. It's dumb for you to feel convicted about doing something wrong. It's ridiculous for you to be devoted to something other than your own success. The world's going to call that ridiculous. Jesus knew that. Jesus knew it then, which is why he said it and why it's put in the Bible, and we need to read it and understand it now. Because we live in a world that is going, Caitlin, here's who you should be. Braden, here's the person you should be. Stop being that other thing and be more like this if you want to fit in. Jillian, you need to adjust this if you want to be accepted. If people aren't filled with the Spirit of God, they are not going to lead you to life. They are not going to give you what God has for you. We need to be willing to take the curses and the blessings. We need to be in a place where if somebody were to stand up and go, hey, to live for Jesus means you're going to get made fun of. To live for Jesus means that you're going to have to do some things opposite the way the world does them, and they're going to look at you strange, and it's going to be awkward. And we need to come to a place where we're like, sign me up right now. Put me on whatever list I need to go on, and I am willing to live that way. And if you're here tonight and you're like, yeah, I don't know about that, that's something for you to wrestle with. Especially if you call yourself a Christian. Because you know what else would have been really easy to write on this name badge? Christian. I am a Christian. But that can mean whatever I want it to mean. That can be nice and, oh good, you're a Christian. Everybody needs a little religion in their life. And you got to wrestle. You've got to decide, is this for real? The people who sat down with Jesus when Jesus laid all this out and goes, all right, you want to know what this is? This isn't going to be the surfacey, warm, fluffy stuff. This is going to be hardcore stuff. All right, you've got a decision to make. They could walk off that hillside and just go about their lives and be like, no, it's easier just to be a fisherman. Never mind. And some of them did. Others, Jesus taught, and Jesus said, all right, see you guys. Love you. Have a good night. And they walked right up to him, and they stuck by his side until they hung him on a tree. What are you going to do? And I don't mean that as a hypothetical question. I don't mean that as just something that's like, okay, we always end with a question, and now Jeff's going to say, would you bow your heads with me? And he's going to pray some prayer, and okay. Seriously, what are you going to do? Because you can walk out that door and you can continue to be a sophomore. You can continue to pursue high school, pursue straight A's, pursue making the varsity, pursue doing some really incredible art project, do something amazing with music, and all that can be great. And the world could look at you and go, is that what you're living for? And for some of you right now, you'd have to say, yeah. If you were really honest, you'd have to go, yeah. But if Jesus is going, if you'll follow me, I will fill you with the Holy Spirit. And you will have power. You will have peace. You will have hope. You will have joy. You will have such a sense of security that the things of the world, if somebody tells you, yeah, you shouldn't be that you have all the confidence to go, you know what, stick it. Because I have Jesus. Drop the mic. Right? So you guys, as we continue in a bit through worshiping through music, and maybe you're a music person and this is a really good way for you to connect with God, maybe you're not. But as we continue this, don't just go through the motions. Think about the things that Jesus has called you to. Think about the ways in your life, honestly. Remember we talked about blessed are the meek? And we said that to be meek doesn't mean to be shy, to be soft-spoken. It means to really be willing to honestly evaluate and go, you know what? I have been playing a game. I haven't been living for Jesus. I haven't been doing this, and I want that to be different. Tonight, are you willing to pray that prayer? And you don't need me to lead you through that prayer. There's no magic words. It's not something that, are you willing to go there with God? Are you willing to make that real in your life? And there are staff around the room that are willing to pray with you, are willing to talk with you. And so as we worship, if you want to talk with somebody, please go and find one of the staff people. If you want to go someplace in the room and just be alone and get quiet with God, go and do that. Please don't make this a social time where you go sit in a corner and talk. But let this be a time where you get with God and you're just like, okay, God, maybe you don't have a problem being meek, but you have a real problem being peaceful. And that's really hard for you. Or being a peacemaker. And that's really hard for you. What is it that God wants to do in your heart tonight? You're not here just to go through youth group. Please don't just go through youth group. There is so much more that God has for you. So, at this point, again, you can stand, you can go somewhere in the room, you can sing, you can not sing. I want to encourage you, don't zone out. Go to God. See what God wants to do in you, how he wants to speak to you, how he wants to bring peace and hope and just confirm that he's here with you. So let's do that together.